What's up, my friend? Welcome back to Finding Direction. And this week, we are going to be diving into the subject and the topic, the episode for today, which is called 4 Simple Steps to Find Your Next Starting Place. And I want to put an emphasis on the simple aspect of this because if you're joining us for the first time here, or if you've been hanging out with us on the podcast for a while, you've probably heard my own journey, or today you'll hear a little bit more of that journey where I went through a place in my life of feeling so lost, so stuck, so questioning why was I here on this planet that I had to continuously refine my purpose, refine why I was here, refine that fire that set my soul on fire. And the 4 steps that I'm going to share with you today are the process that I use, the process that I continue to use to elevate to the next level of my life. And in those moments when I feel lost, and for those of you, if you're feeling lost right now, if you're feeling like you're searching, if you're feeling like you're not quite where you are, where you're supposed to be, this episode is going to be one that is going to be massively, massively valuable for you. And even if you feel like you're in your purpose and you want to get to that next level, this again will give you that clarity to get to the next level of your life. So we're going to dive right in. I am extremely excited to have this conversation with you, if you cannot tell, because again, this is something that I am so passionate about. Before we get into the 4 steps, I'll share a quick story with you. I was just doing a workshop the other day, a 3-day basically seminar where I'm continuing to grow myself and my skills and my abilities. And I'm a believer that you should always be growing. You should always be investing in yourself. So I was practicing what I preach. And one of the things, and it's again a reason I'm excited to share this topic with you today, but one of the takeaways I got from that was one of my new life mission purpose statements. It's a life purpose statement. There we go. And the life purpose is that I am the guy that helps people find what they love and live it every single day. And so that is what you can expect on this episode, is to get closer to figuring out what do you love and how do you live it every single day of your life. All right, so there's a quick snippet about why we're here. And now that we dive into the 4 simple steps to find your next starting place, here is the first step. And again, if you're feeling lost, if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like you're not quite sure what the next thing is that you're supposed to do with your life, this first step is going to be where you are going to get so much juice, unpack so many different things, and you are going to get, in the matter of the next few minutes, an incredible set of targets that you can begin to use as the next step in the next direction of your life, so that you feel less lost, less stuck, more aligned with your purpose, more fulfilled, and really just creating a higher quality of life for yourself. And so the first step of finding your next starting place is reconnecting with yourself. Now, I'm going to walk you through a few different ways that you can do this, but I would highly encourage you that if you are hearing my voice right now and you're going, Stu, I feel lost. I felt lost for a while. I feel stuck. I felt stuck for a while. And you're in that place of sort of seeking for what it is that you're really supposed to be doing in your life. I would encourage you to not just listen to this episode and go on with the rest of your day, but I would encourage you, after each of these things that I share, whether you do this now or whether you come back, re-listen and do it again, I would encourage you to pause the audio, pause the podcast after you listen to these things, and actually give yourself some time to journal on them. Actually give yourself time to expand on them. Maybe it's going on a walk and asking yourself these questions. Whatever way that you connect with yourself in the best way, right? For some of us, it's meditation. Some of us, it's journaling. Some of us, it's going on a walk. Some of us, it's going to play a sport or do something active. But I would encourage you to really dive deep into this. And so a few ways that you can reconnect yourself with yourself so that you can find your next starting place is answer these few questions. And the first question is, what is something that when you do it, it raises your energy? What is something you do that raises your energy? Another way we can look at that as far as what your next starting place is not is what is something that decreases your energy. There is a mechanism that we have in our body, in our being, in our soul, in our spirit, whatever you want to call it. And I've seen this on so many of the guests that we have on this show, that when you listen to the small cues that your body and your intellect and your soul, your purpose, your spirit tells you, you will be guided exactly where you're supposed to be. And one of the most beautiful ways to do this is gaining awareness around your energy, right? What are some of the things that when you do it, you just get so excited. You just come alive almost. And that can be one way that you can find your next starting place, right? Journal on that, see what you come up with. And again, another way is, what are some of the things you do that deplete your energy, right? Maybe currently you're like, Stu, when I go to my job every single day, or when I do my work every single day, it drains my energy. Well, that's a sign that that's probably not where you should be, right? That's definitely not your next starting place. Maybe that's something you want to move away from, right? It's like we have this wave of energy, and if we just continue to follow this wave of energy, it's this unbelievably beautiful guide that we have for where we're supposed to go next. So that's one question you want to ask yourself. What do you do that raises your energy? Another question you can ask yourself to find your next starting place is, what have you always been drawn to in your life? What have you always been pulled towards? What have you always been attracted to? What are some of the things that ever since you were a kid, you just remembered being in love with this, always thinking about it, always being attracted or drawn to it? And go ahead and answer that question or journal on that as well, right? For me, one of the things that I was always drawn to is my mom. She is a life coach, and I'm so blessed that I got to grow up in a home where I had someone like that in my life. I'm beyond blessed. And if you didn't have that experience, hopefully through hanging out with me on the podcast every week, I can give you some of those nuggets. And one of the ones that I got that I was always drawn to as I grew up is I would watch my mother work with people and take people from being in a place in their life where they didn't want to be here anymore. They didn't want to be not here, like where they were living, like they didn't want to be here on earth. They didn't want to live. And she would take these people who didn't want to be alive, that were just suffering, that were in pain, and she would work with them. And, I wouldn't hear all the intricacies, but months later, I would hear that these people weren't just living, but they were loving life. And to me, like, I get goosebumps as I'm sharing the story with you, because I was always so drawn to that. I was always so pulled to the idea that you could help someone that didn't want to be on earth, like didn't want to be alive, and you could take them through, experiences. Coaching is really what it was. And you could help them live a life that they were excited about. And it was just, to this day, it's the coolest thing. I was always so drawn to how my mother was able to do that with people. And it's, full circle in my life today, where I get to do coaching with people, and I get to work with people, and I get to help people, make that transition of not being as excited. It's not as much with people that don't want to be here, but people that aren't as excited about their life, to people that are doing stuff that they really love with their life. So ask yourself, that's a little story of my life, but ask yourself, what are things you've always been drawn to, right? And spend some time journaling on that. Another question you can ask yourself to find that next starting place is, what is something that when you do it, time flies? Like, you're doing this thing and all of a sudden it's like 3, 4, 5 hours went by, maybe even a day or two. It's like, what's one of those things that when you do, it's almost like time just escapes you. It's like time isn't even real. And spend your time journaling on some of that, right? An opposite way to look at that, again, to find what your next starting place is not, is ask yourself, what are the things that when you do them, time goes so slow, right? What are the things that when you do it, time just feels like it's dragging its feet? It's like you're looking at the clock and you're like, man, how did only 30 minutes go by, right? What are those things that drag your time out, that make time feel like it's going slow? And those are the things that are not your next starting point. So if you're doing something and it feels like time just is so slow, you may not actually be where you're supposed to be, right? So ask yourself, what are the things you do that make time fly? That's another starting point. And again, I would encourage you to journal on it, meditate it, whatever is the best way in which you reconnect with yourself. Another way you can find your next starting place is ask yourself, what are some of the things that you are curious about in your life right now? What are some of the things that you're curious about, right? What are some of the things that you just have this sort of like childlike curiosity for? And that is something that absolutely can be part of your next starting place. Now, an interesting little asterisk I'll put here as well is when you find and you take notes in your journal or however you reconnect with yourself and you go, man, these are things that I'm actually really curious about right now. And when you get your answer for that, you need to pull out the analytical part of your brain initially. When the analytical part of your brain comes in and goes, well, you couldn't do that. That doesn't make sense. This isn't logical or possible or whatever, right? You go, this is impossible. Right now, a fun wordplay that I'll give you. You look at the word I'm possible. If you split it apart, the first two letters from the last letters, all impossible says is I'm possible. Right? Nothing is impossible. The only limitations and boundaries that you have are the ones that you create on yourself. Right? So I'll give you a real quick snippet on this as well. Is one of my friends, his name's Josh Church. I was actually on his podcast, and you actually could go check it out. It's an amazing episode where he interviewed me. And one of the things he was curious about that allowed him to find his next starting place was he was curious about breathing. All right. And if you look at the analytical part of the brain, when you go breathing, like you're curious about breathing, how does that have anything to do? Like, what do you mean you're curious? For a lot of people, they may go, you're curious about breathing. That doesn't make any sense. But what happened is Josh followed this curiosity. And when he followed this curiosity, he all of a sudden became an instructor where he was learning about actually how breathing changes the state that you're in. Right now, he owns a company where they do ice baths. And that all came from him being curious about breathing. So take the analytical part of your brain out and just journal on what are some of the things that you're curious about right now. All right. And journal on that. Meditate. Again, reconnect with yourself on that idea of what are the things you're curious about now in your life right now. And the last thing I'll give you is sort of a starting place is ask yourself the question, what is a problem that you are passionate about? Like, what's something that ticks you off? What's something that when you see it, it frustrates you, it upsets you, it maybe even angers you? What's something that's a problem that you are passionate about, right? Some people, a simple example of this could be, is the planet, right? And some people are like, man, people are, trashing the planet, right? We got CO2 emissions. We have people that are using so much plastic. We have this giant, garbage ball that's literally in the middle of the ocean that's, tons and tons and tons of garbage. And maybe you go, man, I'm just so passionate about making sure that we really take care of this thing called Earth. And maybe that's what comes up for you. All right. But those are a few different ways that you can reconnect yourself. And that is step one. Right. So what raises your energy? What have you always been drawn to? What makes time fly? What are you curious about right now? And what are some problems that you are passionate about? I would encourage you to, again, go re-listen to that part. If you're really lost, you're stuck, you're sort of figuring out that next step, and journal on that, meditate on it, spend time living and breathing in those questions. All right, you're going to get a massive, massive amount of clarity as you get closer to your next step. Now, after you spend some time reconnecting with yourself and getting in touch and in tune with some of those things, the next thing you want to do, and this is where we bring in a little bit more of the analytical and logical brain that goes, okay, now I answered these questions. Now how do I actually make this part of my life? How do I make this my next starting place? And the second step for the 4 simple steps to finding your next starting place is you want to connect your answers to companies and causes, right? Connect your answers to companies and causes. So as an example, let's say that something you said that raises your energy is, I'll just give you an example of my own life. One of the things that raises my energy is snowboarding, right? And again, if you're on the show and joining us here every week, you probably go, man, yes, Stu loves snowboarding, and I know that. And if you're new, you will very quickly learn that, yes, I am extremely passionate and love snowboarding, getting outdoors, being in the mountains. It's like it covers so many, it raises my energy. I've always been drawn to it. It makes the time fly. I'm always curious about it, right? And so for me, that's something that would answer a lot of those questions from the first section we did here. And so the way that I could connect that to a company or cause is I could look at, okay, what are companies that have to do with snowboarding? What are companies that have to do with nature? What are companies that have to do with being outdoors, right? And then what I would do is I would make a list of what are 2, 3, 4, 5 companies that really connect with this thing, this outdoors, this snowboards, this, being in nature. And that would be what I would do for step 2, right? Maybe you're going, Stu, some of my answers for these other things was, what I've been drawn to, what raises my energy, what makes time fly, is maybe you go, one of the things for that for me is this idea of Web3. Right? You go, I think Web3 is so cool. I personally, I don't know a ton about it, but maybe you're like, man, it's fascinating. They got NFTs and they got, AI and they got this virtual reality stuff. And you go, it's just fascinating to me. It just, when I think about it and I get, in YouTube and I go down a rabbit hole, it just increases my energy. And it's like all of a sudden 4 hours go by and I just watched all these YouTube videos about Web3 and these different things. So maybe for you, you go, okay, let me go do a little bit of research and look at what are a few companies in the Web3 space. What are a few companies that I would be so passionate to partner up with in that space? What are companies that are working to really be on the cutting edge of this Web3 world? And then boom, you form your list, right? So what you want to do is ultimately in step 1, when you reconnect with yourself, you're going to get all these different things that you reconnect with. And then in step 2, you want to start to build lists out for each thing. Right? So for me, if the number one thing I connected with was helping people, right? And that's something that I've always been drawn to, just like the story I shared with my mom, I would list 4 or 5 companies that have to do with helping people. If the next thing for me was something I've always been drawn to that increases my energy is, snowboarding and being in nature and being outdoor, I would make a list of 4 to 5 companies that have to do with that. So this is the process that you're going to do, right? You're going to find what you reconnect with. You're going to turn it into a list of 3, 4, 5 companies, and that is step 1, and that is step 2 of the 4 simple steps to find your next starting place. Now, once you've done this and you've built your list, the key here of finding the next starting place is not, okay, go online and go apply to all these companies. That's the way I think the majority of people would do this, but I'm going to share with you the 4 simple steps to actually getting and making that your reality. And the third step here is hear this question right now. Never forget this question. Sear this question into your brain. Use this question as much as you can. Say this question over and over and over and over and over. Right? Hopefully now I've convinced you to remember this question that I'm going to share with you right now. And the question is this: who do you know? Who do you know? Who do you know? So once you have this list, let's say of your first 4 or 5 companies, you go, these are companies I would love to partner up with. They have to do with a cause or problem or something that, increases my energy. I'm passionate about it. I'm drawn to all those things. What you want to start to do is ask everybody around you, family, friends, relatives, people that are acquaintances, people you aren't as close with, people you have small relationships with, large relationships with, light relationships, deep relationships with, and ask all of them, hey, who do you know that's either in this company, that's either in this industry, that's in this space? And what you will notice is there is a beautiful connectedness that we have as human beings if we simply ask the right question. There's something, it's called the 6 laws of separation. I'm not going to go down the whole thing of it, but really what it means is, in a nutshell, through 6 people, you can meet anybody that you want in the world. They've done studies on this, that you want to meet Oprah, through 6 people you could meet her. You want to, right? Through 6 people you can meet anybody in the world. So what you want to do is start asking people, hey, who do you know in or around this company? And chances are that you're going to know someone who knows someone in the company, or you're going to know someone who knows someone who knows someone in the company. Right? I promise you, if you ask the right question, who do you know, and you ask it to enough people, you will get connected with one of those companies. All right? So that's step 3, is start asking people around you, who do you know? And the more that you ask, who do you know, the more doors that will be open to you in your life. And then the 4th and final piece is add value. Now, when they make an introduction, when they connect you with somebody in or around these companies, do your research, do your homework, and find a way that you can add value to these people. Maybe it's that you go on their website and you already found out that they work for this company, obviously, right? And maybe you already did research and found out that there's these 3 or 4 positions that are open, and there's one that you would be so good at, You know you would crush it. You know you would bring value to the company. And so maybe when you connect with that person, you can share with them in that moment the value that you know you would bring to the company, right? And it's going to give you a level up because you got a personal introduction. You weren't just some person on a list or on the name of a resume, right? Or on the name of a job application, right? Because you have a personal introduction, a personal connection, it's going to allow you to skip the line. All right, so find ways you can add value. Maybe it's volunteering, maybe it's doing something else, but maybe it's buying them lunch, right? But find some way that you can add value to that person. And if you do this with a handful of these different companies, yeah, maybe the first one doesn't work, maybe the second one doesn't work, but if you build those lists of 4 or 5 companies for a few different problems, things you're interested in, things that raise your energy, things you're curious about, if you continue to do this process and you are persistent, you're going to find yourself at a new starting place, and it's going to be one that you're excited about. It's going to be one that brings you more fulfillment in your life. It's going to be one that raises your energy. It's going to be one where all of a sudden you are going to start waking up and feeling like you're playing rather than working because you're doing something that you actually enjoy. All right, so those are the 4 simple steps to finding your next starting place, and I am telling you, if you are feeling lost, if you are feeling stuck, if you are feeling like you are not in the right place, if you're noticing my energy is not raising when I do the work I do, time goes really slow, right? And you've noticed some of these signs where you're realizing I need to find what's next. If you follow these 4 steps and you execute on these 4 steps, you don't just go, I'm going to go listen to it and think about it and like put it in the back of my unconscious mind and hopefully everything works out. No, it takes work. Yes, it takes work. But as one person once said, they said, life's going to be hard, so pick your heart. You want to have the heart of going through these steps and executing on them and putting some time, effort, and energy? Or do you want to have the heart of doing something you don't actually like, right? And dragging your feet through your day, every single day, 5 days a week, right? So follow these steps. And if you do, and I know it sounds simple, but I've seen this with people I've worked with over and over and over. I've seen this with my own life over and over and over, that if you really do follow these 4 simple steps, you are going to find a starting place that you are so excited about, that you are passionate about, and you're going to find yourself in a place where you are truly living a life that sets your soul on fire. I hope as we wrap up this episode, you can feel my energy right now because I am so absolutely passionate about these 4 steps, and I know that those of you who take action on these things are going to live a life that you are more excited about over the next 2 weeks, few months, if you really begin to execute on these things. So let me give you a quick recap. Number 1 of the simple steps is reconnect with yourself. Go back to the episode, listen to those things, spend some time reconnecting with yourself. Number 2 is connect your answers to companies and causes. And then number 3 is start asking people around you, who do you know? And then finally, step 4 is go out and add value to those new introductions. Add as much value as you possibly can. And when you do that, the law of reciprocity will take care of you. When you add value, it always comes back 10x. So go out there, go execute on those steps. I'm so excited for you to do this and to find yourself in a better place in your life and really find yourself, again, living in alignment with a life that excites you, that puts you on fire, in a life where you're doing work that really lights up your soul. So other than that, thank you so much for hanging around with me for this episode. It's been a joy to have this conversation with you. I've absolutely loved it. I want to say thank you again for spending some of your time with me. Thank you for being a part of this community. Thank you so much for spending time here. It is not something that I take lightly in any way, shape, or form. So thank you so much for being here. And all I would ask is if you have a friend that's searching, if you have a friend that's trying to figure out their life, you have a friend that feels a little bit stuck or lost in their life, all I would ask is just send this to a friend. Send it to somebody you know that could be impacted by this, and I promise you they're going to send you a message back and say, thank you so much for sending me that, and it's going to start to set their life on fire as well. And if you are someone who was sent this, welcome again to the podcast. And other than that, if you want to go ahead, we'd love for you to leave a review on iTunes. Let us know what you're liking, what you want more of, how we can support and pour into you. But other than that, that is officially wrapped for today. So go out there, have a beautiful, blessed, unbelievable day. Remember to practice a little bit of gratitude. Make sure you smile once or twice today. Give somebody a compliment, and just go make sure that you enjoy your life, your day, and every single moment that you get in this life, because every single moment is absolutely another blessing that we have in our life. So thank you for being here. If you want to stick around, don't feel like you need to go anywhere. I have another episode coming up right after this with myself and a guest. And other than that, have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.